I knew I'd messed up the second the words left my mouth. Not just messed up, but detonated something, a small, precisely placed charge at the foundations of my own life. But by then it was already too late. You can't unsay something. You can't suck the poison back out of the air, especially not in front of his boss. My name is Marin, and this is the story of how a dumb joke at a work party turned my marriage into a crater. Last Friday, my husband Elias invited me to his company's end-of-year gala. To be honest, I'd rather have had a root canal. These corporate events are a minefield of feigned interest and plastic smiles. I never knew what to talk about with his coworkers. These people who occupied a part of his life, I only heard about in tired end-of-day summaries. But Elias had insisted. "It's important, Marin," he'd said, his eyes pleading. "It'll look good for me if you come along. Mr. Sterling values family." Fine. I'd play the supportive wife for one night. I even put in the effort. I spent an extra hour on my hair, coaxing it into waves that looked effortless but were anything but. I wore the emerald green dress he liked, the one that made my eyes look brighter. I tried to look put together, whatever that meant. I was a trophy, polished and ready for display. The moment we stepped into the chandelier-lit ballroom, I knew my instincts were right. It was going to be one of those nights where I just had to smile and nod my way through 3 courses and countless vapid conversations. The first hour was manageable. We mingled. We did the whole. "So, how do you know Elias?" Dance with a dozen different people. I stayed on my best behavior, a model of spousal devotion. I had 1 gin and tonic, then another. By the time dinner was served, the alcohol had worked its magic, sanding down the sharp edges of my social anxiety. I was actually starting to feel pretty good. And then he showed up. His boss, Mr. Sterling. The man Elias constantly complained about at home. "He's always on my back," Elias would say, rubbing his temples. Never satisfied with anything I do. In my mind, I'd painted a portrait of a grumpy, gray-haired micromanager. But the man who approached our table was nothing of the sort. Mr. Sterling was surprisingly young, maybe late 40s, with a sharp suit, a sharper haircut, and the kind of confident aura that commanded a room without even trying. I could see right away why Elias was always so stressed about him. We were all sitting at this big round table, me, Elias, Mr. Sterling, and a few other senior colleagues. Everyone was laughing, talking about holiday plans, when somehow the conversation shifted to football. Elias, a die-hard Chicago Bears fan, lived and breathed the sport. His mood on a Sunday evening could dictate the mood of our entire week. Mr. Sterling, it turned out, was a Green Bay Packers fan. If you know anything about football, you know that Bears fans and Packers fans don't mix. It's a rivalry etched in ice and turf. They started going back and forth, playfully jabbing at each other about past games and future prospects. "You guys haven't had a decent quarterback since the 80 seconds, Elias," Mr. Sterling chuckled, taking a sip of his wine. "We're rebuilding," Elias countered, a little too earnestly. "It takes time. At least we don't rely on one guy to carry the entire franchise." The banter was light, but I could see that look creeping onto Elias's face. It's the look he gets when he's losing an argument but is too proud to admit it. His jaw tightens, his answers get shorter. He was on the ropes, and in front of the one man he desperately wanted to impress. And that's when I did it. The gin and tonic, my boredom, and a misguided sense of spousal intervention all conspired against me. I leaned forward, a grin plastered on my face, and said, "Well, if you spent as much time at home as you do defending the Bears, maybe you'd actually win something for once." The table went quiet. Not just quiet, but silent. It was the kind of silence that has a sound, a high-pitched ringing in your ears. I felt it, like the air had been sucked out of the room. Mr. Sterling broke the tension with a loud, booming laugh. He slapped the table, making the silverware jump. "Ha! I like her, Elias. She's got a point." But Elias didn't laugh. He didn't even look at me. He just sat back in his chair, his eyes locked on the tablecloth as if he were trying to count the threads. I knew I should have stopped there. A voice in my head, the one that usually loses arguments, screamed at me to shut up. I didn't listen. Nope, not me. I had to double down. "Maybe if you put that kind of energy into our finances," I added with a little snicker, thinking I was being cute, We wouldn't be arguing about the electricity bill every month. Crickets. The only sound was the distant hum of the hotel's air conditioning. Mr. Sterling just sipped his drink, his smile gone. One of Elias's coworkers gave me that awkward, pained yikes smile. I felt a sharp tap under the table. It was Elias's knee bumping mine, his little shut-up signal. I ignored it. I tilted my head at him, feigning innocence. Don't look at me like that. I'm just joking. You know I'm joking. No, Marin, he said quietly. His voice was low, but it cut through the silence like a blade. You're doing too much. Allo. He went back to eating, chewing his steak like he was grinding rocks between his teeth. Nobody at the table said another word. The only sound was the scraping of forks on plates. I tried to brush it off, to act like it was no big deal, but I felt it inside, that sinking, gut-wrenching feeling that I had pushed way, way too far. The rest of dinner was an exercise in agony. Elias barely spoke to me. When he did, it was short, one-word answers. Yeah. Fine. No. I should have apologized. I know I should have. But I didn't. I was still in that stubborn, self-righteous mode where I believed he was the one overreacting. But after dinner, when Mr. Sterling brought it up again, I knew it was bad. Man, Marin, you're funny, he said, clapping Elias on the back. She really keeps you on your toes, huh? Elias didn't even fake a laugh. He just nodded and said, Yep. That's when I understood. It wasn't just about the joke, it was about respect. And I had just publicly stripped him of it in front of the one person he'd been trying to impress all year. After dinner, the plan was to move to the bar area for more drinks, more networking. Elias didn't even ask if I wanted to stay. He just grabbed his coat from the back of his chair, turned to me, and said with a clipped, cold finality, Let's go. I forced a smile for the table, waving a little too brightly. Oh, guess it's my bedtime, huh? I said, trying to play it off as a joke. No one laughed. We didn't speak the whole ride home. Not a single word. The silence in the car was a physical presence, a third passenger sitting between us, heavy and suffocating. Elias drove like he was mad at the gas pedal, his foot heavy, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. His jaw was so tight I could see the muscle flexing in his cheek. I sat there, scrolling through my phone, pretending I didn't care, pretending to be absorbed in something, anything, other than the Arctic chill emanating from the driver's seat. But I kept glancing at him from the corner of my eye. When we pulled into the driveway, I tried to break the ice, my voice sounding unnaturally cheerful. You're really going to be mad over that? It was just a joke, Elias. He sat there, for a long moment, hands still on the wheel, breathing slow and deep, as if giving himself one last chance to calm down. Then he turned to me. He looked me dead in the eyes, and there was nothing there. No anger, no hurt. Just a terrifying emptiness. No, Marin, he said, his voice flat. It's not just the joke, it's you. I'm tired of this. He got out, slammed the car door, and walked inside. He didn't wait for me. He didn't hold the door open like he usually did. He just left me sitting there in the passenger seat. I stayed in the car for a minute, my heart racing, a confusing mix of anger and bewilderment swirling in my stomach. What did I do that was so wrong? It wasn't that serious. It was a joke. Men joke with each other like that all the time. Why is it different when I do it? I walked in, still defensive, ready to argue my case. But he wasn't in the living room. He was upstairs. I followed him, my heels clicking on the hardwood floors, still calling after him. Elias, seriously, you're really going to act like this? I found him in our bedroom, pulling a duffel bag from the top of the closet. A bag. What are you doing? I asked. My hands landing on my hips in a gesture of pure indignation. Where are you going? He zipped it up with a sharp, definitive sound. He looked at me, his eyes tired but firm. I'm done, Marin. And 12. Done with what? I laughed. A sharp, incredulous sound. I thought he was bluffing. Oh, come on, you're not going anywhere over a joke. He didn't answer. He grabbed his bag, brushed past me without a word, and went downstairs. I followed him, my voice rising, still trying to win an argument he was no longer participating in. You're being ridiculous, I said, my arms crossed, leaning into my sarcastic tone. I'm not chasing you, Elias. If you want to be stupid, be stupid. And 4. He got to the front door and stopped. He looked back at me, and for a second, I saw a flicker of the man I married, a hint of pain in his eyes. But it was quickly extinguished. "That's the problem, Marin," he said, his voice low and even. "You never know when to stop." Then he walked out. I stood there, frozen, still thinking he'd come back in a few minutes, that he'd cool off and realize how absurd this all was, but then I heard his car start. I saw the red tail lights disappear down the street. That's when it hit me. He wasn't playing. I stood at the front door for a while, just staring at the empty street as if he'd turn around any second. I even pulled out my phone, half expecting a "come outside" text. Nothing, just silence. I shut the door, locking it as if that meant something, and leaned against it, biting the inside of my cheek. "He'll be back," I told myself. "He always comes back. We've had arguments worse than this, and he's never left for more than an hour." I went upstairs, still in that stupid green dress, and sat on the edge of the bed. His side of the bed looked so empty. The pillow was still dented from where he'd slept the night before. I stared at it, but instead of feeling sad, I felt annoyed. He's so dramatic. I grabbed my phone and texted him. "Where you at?" No response. Okay, so now he wants to play hardball. Fine, I could play that game too. That first night, I didn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every car that passed on the street, had me checking my phone, my heart giving a hopeful little leap. But it was never him. Midnight came and went. Then 1 a.m. Then 2 a.m. Still no texts, no calls. The silence from his end was louder than any argument we'd ever had. Around 3 a.m., fueled by a cocktail of stubbornness and growing anxiety, I texted him again. Something petty, because that's what I do. "Oh, so you're just going to ghost me now?" Real mature, Elias. No response. I paced the house, muttering under my breath, replaying the night in my head. One moment I'd think, maybe I shouldn't have said that about the finances. But then my pride would roar back to life. No, he's being soft. He's a grown man. If he can dish it, he can take it. I ended up falling asleep on the couch, waking up to the sound of birds chirping and my neck stiff. The first thing I did was check my phone. A message from my sister, Chloe. Any word from Elias? I didn't even answer her. I checked my call log. No missed calls. No texts. The space where his name should have been was a gaping void. I told myself I wouldn't reach out again. My pride was a fortress, and I was its queen. He left, he could come back. But as the hours of Saturday morning ticked by, the walls of that fortress started to feel less like a stronghold and more like a prison. By noon, I was standing at the kitchen counter, tapping my nails on the granite, debating whether to call him. I hated being the one to call first. It felt like admitting defeat. The decision was made for me when I saw his car wasn't in the driveway. Where did he go? I called him. It rang twice, then went straight to voicemail. "Hi. You've reached Elias. Leave a message." His voice was so calm, so normal. It was jarring. "Oh, that's what we're doing now," I muttered to the empty kitchen, shaking my head. Fine. Two could play at this game. But the game was starting to lose its appeal. At this point, I was getting that creeping feeling in the back of my mind, the one you get when you realize you've severely underestimated a situation. I needed an ally. I needed someone to tell me I was right. So, I called my sister. "What's up?" Chloe answered on the third ring. I sighed, flopping onto the bed. "Elias is being stupid." "Uh-oh. What did you do this time?" she said, a little laugh in her voice. "What did I do?" I sat up, offended. "Why do you always assume it's me?" "Because it's usually you, Marin," she said bluntly. "What happened?" I told her everything. The party, the football debate, the jokes. Of course, I framed it to make myself look like the witty, playful wife and him the overly sensitive husband. "Just a little playful back and forth," I said. "No big deal." I even threw in a few "he's so sensitive" comments for good measure. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Marin," Chloe's voice was suddenly quiet, serious. "You said that, in front of his boss?" "Yeah, so?" It's not like I lied. I shot back, annoyed that she wasn't taking my side. "He's always talking about how stressed he is at work. Maybe if he handled things differently, he wouldn't be." "Marin," Chloe cut me off, her voice sharper this time. You disrespected him. In front of his boss. Men don't play about that. You made him look small. I sat there, silent for a second. Okay, but it was just a joke. He's being childish. Was he laughing? She asked. No, but then it wasn't a joke. Her words hung in the air, heavy and true. I hate when she says things that make too much sense. I changed the subject. Anyway, he left. Packed a bag and everything. Wait. He left? Like, left? Yep, I said, tossing a pillow across the room. Acting like he's done or something. I'm not chasing him, though. If he wants to throw a fit, that's on him. Girl, she said, and I could hear the concern in her voice. You might want to fix this. Elias isn't the type to bluff like that. He'll be back, I muttered. But for the first time, I didn't really believe it. After the call, I felt even more agitated. Chloe hadn't given me the validation I craved. So I went where validation is cheap and plentiful. Facebook. I dolled myself up, took a selfie with a defiant smirk, and posted it with a caption. Funny how some people think they're the victim when they're the problem all along. Stay gone if you want to. I'm good over here. The likes and comments rolled in immediately. Girl, you deserve better. If he can't handle you at your worst, he doesn't deserve you at your best. It was exactly the type of energy I wanted. It felt good, like a warm blanket of external approval. A couple of my friends texted me too, and I ate it up like dessert. Yeah, I'm good, I'd reply. I'm always good. But when the third night came, and my phone remained stubbornly, painfully silent, that feeling didn't last. No, where are you? Texts. No missed calls. Nothing. It was like I didn't exist. My fortress of pride was crumbling, and I was starting to get very, very cold. By the fourth day, the silence was a constant ringing in my ears. I had replayed his final words over and over. It's you. I'm tired of this. I hated those words because, for the first time, I couldn't spin them into something that made me feel better. I couldn't blame him for being too sensitive or dramatic. This time it felt different. It felt like me. But even then, pride, that stubborn, toxic vine, kept me from calling. Instead, I called his brother Marcus, trying to sound casual. Hey, is Elias with you? I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. Nope, haven't seen him. Why? Oh, no reason, just checking. I lied, chewing on my thumbnail. You good? He asked, like he knew something was off. Yeah, I'm fine, I said, and hung up before he could ask more questions. The panic was starting to set in now. Not full-blown screaming panic, but a low, creeping dread in the pit of my stomach. It wasn't until later that night that he finally called. My phone lit up with his name, and my heart hammered against my ribs. I let it ring twice before answering, trying to sound like I hadn't been staring at it for the past 96 hours. Wow, finally remembered you have a wife, I said, my voice dripping with a sarcasm I didn't feel. Marin, he said. His voice was calm, but it was a cold, distant calm. We need to talk. Oh, so now you want to talk? Where were you last night, huh? Don't do that, he said, cutting me off. I'm not playing games with you. And I'm the one playing games? You're the one who stormed out like a teenager. I stormed out because I'm tired, Marin, he said, and the exhaustion in his voice was palpable. Tired of being embarrassed by you. Silence. I didn't have a comeback for that one. The truth was a solid punch to the gut. Look, he continued, I'm not coming back home tonight. I'm staying at my mom's for a bit. I need space. Space? I laughed, but it was a brittle, hollow sound. A defense mechanism. Space for what? You act like I cheated on you or something. No, you didn't cheat, he said slowly, each word carefully chosen. But you break me down. It's like you want me to feel small. I'm not living like that anymore. My chest tightened. Wow, so now I was the bad guy. I leaned all the way into the victim role. You're walking away from our marriage because of a joke? He sighed, a long, weary sound. I could hear him rubbing his face, a habit he had when he was frustrated. This isn't just about last night, Marin, he said quietly. It's everything. It's the way you talk to me. It's the way you act like you're always right. I can't win with you. I'm done trying. My heart started pounding, a frantic, trapped bird in my chest. You're really doing this? I asked, my voice cracking for the first time. You're really throwing away our marriage? No, he said, and his words hit harder than I ever expected. You threw it away. I'm just walking away from the mess. Oh. I heard the click of the call ending before I could respond. I sat there, stunned, the phone still pressed to my ear as if he might come back on the line. He didn't. I sat there for a long time, the phone still in my hand, staring at the call-ended screen, like it might change. My throat felt tight, but I didn't cry. I don't cry over stuff like this. He'll be back, the stubborn part of me whispered. He always comes back. But as the minutes ticked by, something about this time felt different. Final. I called him back. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I wasn't about to leave a message. I'm not that desperate. I scrolled to Chloe's name, hovered over it, then changed my mind. I knew what she'd say. She'd hit me with that. Well, you did kind of push him too far this time speech, and I didn't have the energy to hear it. So I just sat there, alone. For the first time, I felt the full weight of what I had done, the silence of the house pressing in on me, a tangible result of my own careless words. A week later, I got served. Divorce papers. Right there on my own front porch, handed to me by some random guy in a polo shirt like it was a pizza delivery. I snatched the manila envelope out of his hand and slammed the door in his face. Unbelievable, I muttered, tearing it open. My hands were shaking. He's really doing this. Over a stupid argument. My eyes skimmed over the legal jargon, irreconcilable differences, but I didn't really read it. It didn't feel real. People argue all the time. People say things they don't mean. People get over it, right? Apparently not Elias. A month went by in a blur of denial and anger. I convinced myself it was all for show, a power move to get me to chase him, to beg. Classic Elias, I told myself, he'll cave. I clung to that belief like a life raft. Until I saw her. I was doing what had become my nightly ritual. Mindlessly scrolling through Facebook, a glass of wine in my hand, trying to numb the gnawing emptiness. And there she was, tagged in a picture with him. Some girl named Aria. She was blonde, skinny, the kind of woman who looked like she woke up at 5 a.m. to do yoga and drink green juice. I clicked on her profile. It was wide open. Rookie mistake. Her bio read, "Blessed beyond measure." I rolled my eyes so hard I got dizzy. And then I saw it. A picture of them at a restaurant sitting in a booth. He had his arm around her and he was smiling. A big, genuine, crinkles around the eyes smile. A bigger smile than I had seen from him in years. She had a caption under it, posted just 3 days earlier. Thankful for this man every day. This man. Not my husband. This man. My chest started burning. A hot, acidic fire spreading through my veins. I sat up straight, scrolling through every single post, every tag, every little heart emoji. It was like digging through my own grave. This woman, this Arya, was living the life I had built. She was eating at the restaurants I had introduced him to. She was reaping the benefits of my hard work, the years I had spent helping him build his confidence and his career. He didn't even wait. He didn't pause. He didn't grieve the end of our marriage. He just moved on. Replaced me. I clicked back to his page and scrolled through his posts. Nothing. He never even mentioned the divorce. Not one post about being free or finding peace. Just silence. But that picture on her page? That picture said everything. I sat there, my jaw clenched so tight, I could feel it in my temples. My first instinct was to post again. Another Facebook status. Something slick. Something petty. It's always the healed ones that forget who helped them heal. But I'm good over here, trust that. I hit post and watched the likes roll in. It felt good, for a second. That familiar, fleeting hit of validation on demand. But the feeling didn't last as long this time. It felt hollow, pathetic. By midnight, I deleted it. Not because I regretted the sentiment, but because I suddenly realized something with a soul-crushing certainty. Elias wasn't going to see it. He wasn't checking for me. He didn't care. While I was curating my pain for a public audience, he was out there living, laughing with someone new. Arya was probably laughing at something he said while I was watching them through a screen. The thought was humiliating. The next day, I called my lawyer. I wasn't about to lose quietly. If he was going to move on that fast, then I was going to make it as hard as possible. The hurt inside me was curdling, hardening into something ugly and sharp. It was no longer about getting him back. It was about making him pay. The days that followed were a cold, calculated blur. The grief was still there, a dull ache behind my ribs, but it was overshadowed now by a burning, all-consuming rage. I found myself staring at our wedding photo on the mantel, standing there like I was studying a crime scene. My smile looked forced in the picture now. His eyes, which I had always thought looked happy, now just looked tired. I couldn't unsee it. Had he been tired even then? Tired of me? I sat on the couch with that old wedding photo in my lap, turning it over and over in my hands. The back had a date scribbled in Sharpie. April 22nd, 2016. I ran my thumb over it, trying to convince myself that none of this was my fault. I gave him everything, didn't I? I cooked, I cleaned, I supported him when he had nothing. I held it down. But the other voice in my head, the one that didn't need Chloe or anyone else to check me, was louder this time. It whispered, "You never apologized." I ignored it. I flipped the picture back over and set it down hard on the coffee table. I didn't owe him an apology. He overreacted. He was a grown man who could have stayed and talked it out, but he ran like a kid. That was on him. That's what I told myself anyway. But the image of him smiling with Arya was seared into my brain. That was the one thing I couldn't rationalize away. It was the proof that he was happier without me. And that was a truth I couldn't bear. The numbness that had protected me began to wear off, leaving raw, exposed nerves. I didn't want him back anymore. I didn't want him at all. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't want him to feel it. I wanted him to feel the sting of loss, the bitterness of regret. I wanted him to look at his new, blessed life and see a shadow of me, a reminder of what he had thrown away, even if I was the one who had broken it. That evening, I sat in my lawyer's office, the air smelling of old paper and stale coffee. "So, Marin," he said, looking over his glasses at me, "are we aiming for an amicable settlement?" I thought of Elias's smile in that picture. I thought of Arya's smug caption. I thought of his final words to me, cutting and cold. Amicable? No. There was nothing amicable about this. I leaned forward, my hands flat on the polished mahogany of his desk. A cold, hard certainty settled over me. The war of our marriage was over. I had lost. But the war of our divorce was just beginning. And this was a war I intended to win. "No," I said, my voice steady and clear, devoid of the tears that had threatened to fall for weeks. "I want you to make it as hard as possible." "You want to act happy, Elias?" I thought, the words a silent vow in my head. "Cool. Let's see how happy you are after I get half of everything you've ever worked for." I didn't want him back. I didn't even want to be right anymore. I just wanted him to hurt, and if I couldn't have his love, I would settle for his misery. I'd make sure his new little blessed beyond measure girlfriend knew exactly what she had signed up for. She hadn't just inherited a man. She had inherited his past. And I was going to make sure that past had a very expensive and very bitter price tag.